Malaysian police say they are investigating several reports of lawmakers being targeted by a blackmail campaign involving fake pornographic videos made using AI. The government has pledged to take firm action against cyber criminals. Authorities say at least 8 cases have been reported and all involve extortion attempts. The perpetrators threatened to circulate fabricated porn videos online if those targeted did not pay $100,000. The affected lawmakers received the threats via email from an unknown sender. Police say they are working with the Communications Ministry to track the source of the emails. Malaysia is not the only country facing such cases, as the evolution of technology has fueled a global surge in deepfake-related issues. And for more insight into this, we're joined by Simon Chesterman, David Marshall, Professor and Vice Provost of Educational Innovation at the National University of Singapore and the Senior Director of AI Governance at AI Singapore. Professor, firstly, what does this incident in Malaysia reveal about the urgency for AI regulation in Southeast Asia?
Well, I think one of the things it really shows is that this technology is now global. It's been making it ever easier for us to create harmless videos, but also, as the Malaysian case demonstrates, to produce videos with the potential for harm or even criminal activity. And so one of the challenges is this technology can be developed in any country, but then deployed all around the world. So it's not just a problem for Malaysia or Singapore, it's really a worldwide problem now.
So what kind of legal or policy framework should governments prioritize to combat AI-driven blackmail and deepfake abuse?
So this is one of the dilemmas. I mean, there are all sorts of laws that prohibit blackmail, extortion, sharing of non-consensual images, and so on. In Singapore, this is already a crime. There are remedies under the Prevention of Harassment Act in Singapore. Last year, we had the Online Criminal Harms Act. In the context of elections, we've got specific legislation in Singapore around deepfakes during an election period. And of course, there's also POFMA, the Prevention of Online Falsehoods and Manipulation Act. The problem with all of this is that these come after the fact. And the problem with this technology is not just its global nature, but its speed. And so it's sometimes said in this space that a lie can travel around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes. And so anyone who's affected by these harms, or in the Malaysian case, the threat of these harms, it can be very difficult to kind of put that toothpaste back in the tube.
Well, it tends to suggest that cybercrime laws are insufficient at the moment to address harms caused by deepfakes, as in this case. From your perspective, what are the gaps here, both regionally and globally?
So the difficulty here is, what is it that you're actually trying to prevent? And if it's to prevent the creation of deepfakes, well, that's going to be extremely difficult if you're looking at either trying to prohibit the dissemination of that technology. I mean, video editing software has been around for a long time. This just makes it a bit easier. Is it the act of creation? Well, we don't normally criminalize someone doodling something in a notebook or even doing something on their own computer. There are a few exceptions. What we're really trying to guard against is the harm of either sharing this false imagery or video and the consequences to which that could give rise, or in this case, the threat of blackmail and the effort to use it to pursue a kind of criminal enterprise and thereby extract money. So the tension around the world is, do we focus on the tools, the creation, or the dissemination? And most people would agree that the real harm only comes with the dissemination. And so the focus in many jurisdictions, including Singapore, hasn't been to make it impossible to create a deep fake, but rather to make it as fast as possible, make it possible for us to address it, to limit it, to take it down, and hopefully get the truth back online.
Professor, what kind of legal recourse is available to victims in such cases, especially if perpetrators remain anonymous?
So the anonymity is really a key problem. If you can identify who it is, then there are all manner of tools available. You can get an injunction to stop them doing it, to take it down. You can possibly get some criminal damages, some civil damages, so they might have to pay some sort of compensation. And in extreme cases, you might be able to get them sent to prison or at least get a big fine. But as you highlight, in many situations, it's very hard to trace where these people are, who they are. And in such circumstances, going after the alleged criminal, if you could find them, that would be kind of easy. In the interim, where we probably have to focus our attention is on getting the platforms to take responsibility. So getting the medium through which this is going to be disseminated to slow down putting it up and enable us to get it taken down, and possibly to develop technology that will enable us more quickly to detect these things in real time as they're being uploaded.
So if lawmakers can be targeted, what sort of protection should exist for ordinary citizens?
Yeah, so if you're a public figure, then you've probably got a communications team, and those people should be advising on sort of before, during, and after. Before, you want to have good ties with the press so that if something like this comes up, someone's going to check with a trusted source, is this real or is it fake? And then that might reduce the chance of it going viral. During, you want to reach out quickly to platforms. Afterwards, you want to do damage control, reputation control. Not all of these are available to normal people. And so the average person is unlikely to have all of these sort of support mechanisms at their disposal. The key things probably to keep in mind are, one, whatever you do, don't pay the ransom, don't pay the blackmail. That would be a big mistake, I think. Two, reach out as quickly as possible once you hear about this to the platforms. And three, if appropriate, reach out to the police as well. Try and get an injunction, try and get in Singapore's context, something under the Prevention of Harassment Act. This can be done fairly quickly, but again, it's going to be a challenge to do it in a time frame that will prevent something really sensational going viral. I suppose the glass half full analysis for most people is that their individual indiscretion, alleged or fake, is likely to be less of a news story than a politician, and those politicians should have some kind of communications team to support them.
On that, what message would you send to governments that are still debating the need for AI-specific legislation?
Yeah, I mean, I think around the world, there has been a debate about what to do in terms of this, what we call lawful but awful content. So existing laws cover some things, but this technology is making it ever easier, not just to produce high quality deepfakes, things that look real, but also to do so at scale. And so back when Singapore introduced the Prevention of Online Falsehoods and Manipulation Act in 2019, there was some criticism that this was government overreach, it wasn't really necessary. But in a project we've been leading at the National University of Singapore called Information Gyroscope, we've tracked legislation around the world, and really the questions for government is not whether to regulate in this space, but how, and how you're going to balance free speech versus protecting individuals from being defamed online.
Well, as you say, legislation is one thing. What about enforcement? How would you recommend that governments go about enforcing what they've placed in law?
So I think it's both up to the governments, but also the platforms. And the platforms, I think, are one of the most difficult bodies to press in this space, because what we've seen, in particular in the United States, is a real reluctance to fact check. I mean, some of the largest platforms have been cutting back on their fact-checking investments. They still use automated systems to prevent the most extreme forms of harm going online. But in countries like the United States, you've seen a real willingness to tolerate some pretty offensive material across the board, and that includes deepfakes. Europe presents another example. Europe has regulated much more heavily through the Digital Services Act and the Digital Markets Act, as well as AI Act. Singapore, I mentioned, we've got this suite of tools. But unless you can incentivize platforms to want to be better, to want to preserve a kind of a much more civilized online discourse where they're not motivated purely by eyeballs, by attention, which is how advertising revenue is generated, unless they can be incentivized or, if necessary, compelled to maintain higher standards for their communities, then it's going to be an uphill battle.
Well, many thanks for those insights, Simon Chesterman. He's a professor and vice provost at NUS and senior director of AI Governance, AI Singapore. Thank you.